Continuing along on our X-frame quadcopters, here's another one made by AirPixFPV. This is a 220 quadcopter. This is called the AP-5. This was made with 3K carbon fiber, and so it should be a little bit better quality than the other ones I've been reviewing. Also, this has taken some of the shortfalls of other quadcopters I reviewed and actually fixed some of those things. So, without delay, here's how the package comes. Comes in a nice box like this with the AP-5 sticker up here on the front. So let's go ahead and get this open and we'll take a look inside. So here's everything included in the package. You get a set of 50-40 3-blade propellers. You get a battery straps with the AirPixFPV logo on it. They give you this little key thing here. It's remove before flight. And then you have some 3D printed feet, some green aluminum spacers and screws to put the plates together. Then it has a bag of screws to hold the, actually these are the nylon spacers and some of the screws to hold the arms on. And another little 3D printed piece to go in the middle of the quad to hold the 4 screws in the middle, 1 for each arm. And of course the carbon fiber plates, sticker, and a business card. So here are what all the carbon fiber parts look like laid out. Let's go ahead and get some measurements off of these so we can see how they're coming in. The arms are 4 millimeters thick, which means they should be able to spin 5-inch propellers, even 6-inch propellers with no problem and not have any bend in the arms themselves. Here's the main plate. It comes in about 2 millimeters. The top plate comes in at 2 millimeters. That's good because a lot of these top plates have been coming out with 1.5 millimeter carbon fiber, which is okay, and it usually does fair, but in bad crashes, because it's so thin and the spacing between the screws is usually so long that it puts a lot of strain on the frame here, and usually you'll see it break up here by the screws or back here in the back by the screws. It's happened to me a couple of times, and it's happened to one of my friends a couple of times on his LS210. Here's the plate that's supposed to help hold the arms in place to give them a little bit more strength. Comes in about 1.5, and these are the side plates that hold the you can mount your FS1177 to, and they're also 1.5 millimeters thick. So here are the 4 arms in place. It has the 8 screws that come up through the bottom of the bottom plate, through the arms, and then through this little spacer on, or this little adapter piece up here. And this is supposed to give it a lot more strength. So you're kind of sandwiching the arms in place instead of just having them instead of just having the plate on one side. This would give a lot more strength to the arms. And these arms being 4 millimeters, they're gonna have a real hard time breaking even in bad crashes. Anyway, you have this little 3D printed piece that goes up here on the top, and it just goes up here and holds these nylon screws, or these nylon nuts in place. That way you can screw the screws in from the bottom. And also, once your flight board is in place and these 4 holes here, then these won't really be accessible to anything, even a pair of needle nose pliers, unless you start tearing it apart. So by having that 3D printed piece on there, you can actually pull these screws out, pull the screw out here, this screw, and the arm can be replaced pretty easily without having to tear your whole quadcopter apart. Now, you really only have these 8 screws holding the arms in place, because the screws that go through here, which I still have sitting here, will come up through here and then go into nylon spacers to hold the flight board in place. Now, I think that should be plenty of strength for the 8 screws here, mostly because you got this top plate in place. If you didn't have this top plate in place, 3 would really be required, but because they included this, I really don't think you're going to need 3 screws holding in each arm. The screws that were included to hold the spacers in place are measuring almost 8 millimeters, like 7.5 or so. And with this 2 millimeter main plate, it still gives you 5 millimeters of thread up on the top to go into these spacers. And the good thing about that is, man, I'm getting a lot of turns on that. The good thing about that is when you crash and it puts a lot of strain on this screw here, that has enough threads into there that it's not going to strip that out. Some other ones I've reviewed come with little short threads that come up maybe 1 or about 2 or 3 millimeters, and it's okay, it'll hold it in place, but having 5 millimeters coming up above the board into these spacers is going to provide a lot of strength, especially since there's 8 spacers on this thing. So here's the frame fully assembled, and this thing looks nice. The nice thing is up here you have these spacers up here that help hold the camera in place, and you have all these different holes you can put it in depending on where you want it to go. I'd probably put it up near one of the front 2. But the other nice thing is because of the way that this is designed, this actually is giving you a ton of strength off of this thing too to hold these plates together, hold the plates apart. And like I said before, the distance here between these two spacers is pretty short compared to some of the other quadcopters that I looked at, and that gives you gives the upper plate a lot more strength to help hold that battery up. In fact, look, we're looking at less than 70 millimeters. So that's pretty good. Also back here it has these long holes back here on either side, and that could be good to help hold down your video or your receiver. And also it has the long holes up here, which would be good for holding up your video transmitter up here. And with this hole as big as it is, you should be able to put your window, if you have a video transmitter that needs to be seen from the top, you can get it from here. Also, if you have buttons, you can put them so they're accessible from up here. It has the mounting hole here for a video antenna to go on here, video transmitter antenna, if you don't mind mounting it to the carbon fiber. But a lot of people don't like to do that because they say it grounds the whole frame. Well, don't short anything to the frame and you'll be fine. It also has the zip tie holders here on this side and this side, so if you ran your video antenna out this way, it wouldn't have to actually go through the hole. I've always thought these frames with the longer bodies like this would weigh more than something like this GE220. This GE220 has these two side plates that kind of just stick straight up with a few spacers in them and a camera mount, and this thing is also 2mm thick, just like these are 2mm thick, but I think there's a lot less material here than there is on these plates. Anyway, I've always thought these would be heavier, so just for a comparison's sake here, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to weigh the GE220 against the AirPixFPV AP-5. So here's the GE220 coming in about 140.7. Now also included with the AirPix AP-5 are these 3D mounted feet, and these things are supposed to go on the bottom side of your motors under the frame, and the motor screws go through here, through the arm into the motors, and that helps lift the quadcopter up off the ground, you know, just a little bit so that you're not actually landing on the belly of the frame and messing up your carbon fiber. So I'm going to go ahead and weigh this with the feet and the two battery straps, and it comes in about 139.7. So even with the extra feet and the battery straps on this and the same size 2mm plates, it's actually coming in less than a GE220, which is not what I would have expected. So here's one of the rear arms, and here is a 5-inch propeller that's included with it. And you can see here there's plenty of space for 5-inch to clear around this without having any problems. You're not going to run 6-inch props on this, but the 5-inch props will have no problem. The other thing that's nice is that these propellers are not going underneath the frame. I've seen some arms where the arms are too short and it actually goes under the frame. It doesn't hit anything, but it goes under, which I'm always like, why would you design a frame like that? Keep it out. Anyway, so this one is perfect. And also the front arms are about the same thing. There's no problem with this thing spinning 5-inch propellers at all. These arms, they have an extra hole up here. If you wanted to run a screw through there and put a little metal spacer on there, you can actually do that if you wanted to. I don't recommend it because it's just always so easy when it hits the ground for those things to bend the screws and just break off. Also, if you look here, these arms are designed to run 2200 size motors. You're not going to be able to fit your 1806 motors on here because these are 16 by 19 hole spacing on these 2200 size motors. Also, it has these little bumps out here which are kind of cool looking. I think that's just to help give a little bit more strength and protection to the arm there. Anyway, so let's get this thing measured from motor hole to motor hole to see how long it really comes out. And it starts there and it comes over to about 220 millimeters, and that's what it advertised itself as being, is 220 millimeters. So if we measure crosswise though, between these two arms, we get about 170-ish, maybe a little less. If we go from the front to back, same measurements, we get about 140. So it's a little bit wider than it is, I guess lengthwise from front to back. So it's not really 100% true X. Speaking of not true X frames, here's my TCR 260, and this is my current racing quad that I use, and it has the ability to run 6-inch props, but I'm only using 5-inch props because I think 5-inch props are fine for racing, especially if you use the 3-blade props like this. So this one, being that it holds 5-inch props and doesn't support 6-inch props, it should have a little bit less mass in the arms and a little bit less weight therefore, and hopefully be able to spin them a little bit faster. But you know, of course, if you get this frame with these green spacers, you have to get green propellers. So this has been a look at the AirPixFPV AP-5 quadcopter, and I'm really surprised how light this is compared especially to that GE220, just because I always thought these longer bodies would have a lot more weight to them than quads with the little square bodies. Anyway, there's a lot of information about this quadcopter on their website, and it talks about somewhat about how they did a lot of testing on it, and it uses 3K carbon fiber. Anyway, I think this is a pretty slick quadcopter, and I'll probably get this one built out here in the next few months, and we'll see how this flies. And I'm imagining it's going to fly a lot like the TCR 260, except maybe a little bit better because of the shorter arms. It'll have a little less weight, and it won't have as much drag through the air. Anyway, if you have any questions about this AirPixFPV frame, I'll have links to their website in the description. You can check that out, or you can leave questions in the comments, and I'll try to help you out as best I can. And as always, thanks for watching.